today we're here to talk about looking forward. The fact that the recovery, and I think that's a good word, the recovery is here. The economy is growing. We've known that it's been growing for some time, but we weren't quite sure if it would stick. And I think people now are of the opinion that the economy is going to stick.
With a limited municipal supply, because so many folks went to the sidelines and so many folks are pursuing bank debt, we now have limited supply, and that limited supply is helping pull down interest rates.
We really woke up one day, probably a little exaggeration, but we woke up one day and said, everything is old. And I guess the question is for you, when does that happen? For us, we went along for quite a period of time and we always thought, well, these units are marketable, and if we paint and carpet or if we spend some money, I think what I've already come to is that you have to say, how many turns are you going to get on that investment? So if you spend $100,000 and you move someone in and then you turn it again, get another entrance fee and a few more years, then are you going to be able to turn it a third time or a fourth time compared to new construction? And how many turns are you going to get on that?
So we had an really interdisciplinary team from Greystone that went out and said, all right, we got to break down these zones. And we want to understand each of those zones from 3 perspectives to try to best understand John Knox Village. First one was, what's the customer's view of that zone? Secondly, and that really probably was marketing's eyes on that zone. So Bruce Byers and his team really taking a hard look and saying, all right, how does the customer view this area? Second one was, what was the functionality of that zone? How did it perform and maybe operate? So we had our operations team kind of looking at it through that lens. And then we had really an assessment of the buildings and the structures.
Instead of skating to where the puck is going to be, as Wayne Gretzky instructed, you find organizations are just trying to catch up with the puck. And so if you find yourself constantly doing this from a defensive or protectionist perspective, I think that's an insight into your organization and how it is truly embracing change, or is it a step behind?
What is it that we've learned throughout the process of this? Some of the keys to surviving, as Steve talked about, number one is that having a proactive management team and board, and recognizing that things are going to change throughout the course of that, but being able to continue to monitor that progress, make adjustments as necessary, and continuing to hold the entire team accountable. One of the other keys is that working with an integrated team that looks at not strictly the individual components. So looking at, from a construction delay, certainly the design and construction team could say, well, here's the steps that we need to be able to address getting the building back up and opening. But having that integrated team allowed everyone to look at it and say, but what's the impact on marketing? How do we continue to maintain the sales that we have in place, address the uncertainty of the opening, and then also maintain and minimize the impact that the organization had to the overall business model.
Remember, there used to be the 3-legged stool of retirement income: pension, Social Security, and savings. And when we took away pensions, then became more dependent on other forms of income and assets. And so it's a power shifting towards consumers. What they're going to buy has to fit the changing financial picture of the seniors. They used to be homogenous. They used to walk in the door, all of them that looked very similar in terms of their financial picture, and now they're all over the map. And we have to be able to respond to that with entrance fee programs, monthly fee programs, and lifestyle programs that matter.
Why is this so important?
to talk about experience and feelings. And really the reality of it is experience is what we sell when you boil everything else down in senior living. It doesn't matter whether you're in long-term care and you're talking about the outcome of a care plan, or whether you're talking about first impressions at the concierge desk, or whether you're talking about marketing, indicating what we offer in a CCRC. Everything we do is about the experience.
So the staff is key, and training the staff is often difficult, and it requires an incredible commitment. And what I'm holding here is a card that looks fairly simple, but it says the ABHOW Advantage, and it is the hospitality system that we've implemented based on Ritz-Carlton and writing a program specifically for our company and our communities. About an hour ago, I left the room, I went out on the patio, I got on the phone with my team, and I talked about what today's lesson was. We're working on training this week, 10-minute phone call. We have, this is ABHOW, a corporate office huddle every day. Each of the communities has a huddle with the executive director and his or her direct reports, and each department head has a huddle every shift, every day, at every community. It's the only way it works. If it doesn't start at the top, and it doesn't get to the housekeeper who's working weekends, it doesn't matter.
What I would want to share with you though is the Get Set up here comes from Friendship Senior Options. It's what we call our brand identity, our brand promise. That's the thing that we try to build every day as it relates to our residents, to our staff, and to our relationships with the outside world. In this particular case, that outside world includes Ziegler and Greystone in a real special way. We had to push each other. We had to make demands on each other. We had to yell at each other every once in a while. They had to do the same thing because we didn't do everything right as a sponsor. It wasn't a one-way street. But the thing that made for the magic was that we had the ability to do that and still keep the primacy of making the project successful as what we were trying to do. And if you can keep that out in front of you, you can get there too.